Hello, everybody. It's just in case of American Newscape, rejoining our friend Scott Dudley for American Consciousness. Or better yet, hey, hello, Scott. Welcome back to American Newscape.
Hey, welcome. Justin, listeners, welcome. Hang on to your hats, people. This is going to be, I'm not going to get caffeinated for this show. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to try, it's really going to test uh, both of Justin's and my ability to frame things on the fly. And to me, that is such an important skill. And I think it's really cool in terms of, because that's what media does. You know, you can turn on two different channels and they take the same thing and they put exactly opposite meanings on it. And they have all this kind of stuff to kind of back up why they think that's true. Well, we've gone right to the source. We've gone to the Oracle, the Delphi. The Chat GPT ain't got nothing on this bad boy.
Absolutely.
So what we've done is we've purchased a virtual online 8-ball. And every time you hit the little shake button, it will give you an answer, a true answer, because 8-balls don't lie, right? Anybody who played with an 8-ball when you were a kid, eight balls don't lie. So I went to I've got a few questions that I got several of those from the dog park, by the way. So
Okay.
You may have some of my goofy ones too, but you'll definitely get some that I wouldn't have thought of. And so I will ask the question. So we'll take turns. First, I'll ask the question, and then I'll push the shake again button on the 8-ball. See the 8-ball shaking?
I do.
And then it has an answer, which I can put up somewhere where you can see it. There you go. And it says, it is certain. And whatever that question was, Justin will explain to us why it is indeed certain.
Absolutely. Having
And
the
then Justin gets a turn.
All right. Well, no, I do have a kindred spirit with the Magic 8-ball. And sadly, it was one of my better friends as a child.
You know what? I loved it. I didn't have one. My grandparents had one, and whenever I went up there, it was either that or Poems for the John. I love grandma and grandpa stuff.
All right, Scott, let's do this.
All right, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Oh, I'll endeavor to go first.
Okay. So I'll ask the question and you answer it.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the question. The Beatles proclaimed, "All you need is love." Now, we're not sure who you is that they're referring to. It's probably you, Justin,
Probably.
but maybe it's like all humanity. So, 8-ball. Is all you need love? Pushing the 8-ball, it's shaking, and it says yes. Justin, enlighten us.
Well, absolutely. All you really need is love, and that's the basis of everything. That's what we build our lives on. I mean, that's our hope, that's our dream. So, even though I was not a Beatles fan, I do agree with that verse.
Nice. I always thought from the Beatles standpoint, after kind of following their career, being in music, the Beatles were hard to ignore. And I always thought, John, when he did that, was referring to people. And Paul, when he did it, was referring to his girlfriend. And George Harrison was referring to like God and the universe. And Ringo was referring to just kind of a mindful moment, living every day like it's just a blast and full of love. And I could see them all coming together and agreeing on all you need is love, but having really different ideologies in terms of how they thought that reflected itself out.
Well, absolutely. And it's easy when you live in a yellow submarine.
Right?
Right.
I wouldn't know, but no, and we're both tall, so it wouldn't be easy. It would be some form of torture.
There you go. Well, yeah,
All right, your serve. Your serve.
So I'm to ask the question.
Yeah, you can, and it has to be a yes or no question because 8-balls can't handle nuance.
Okay. Is global warming a reality?
Okay, is global warming a reality? And I'm gonna shake. I'm evidence that I'm shaking the eight ball. The eight ball is shaking, and it says signs point to yes. And I'm and I'm laughing because that's like a really actually fairly accurate answer, right? Because there isn't any final determinant. We have some data from past years. We've got ice cores from many years ago, and there was carbon in the water and the ice, and they can kind of figure out what the carbon content of the world was. And the world has gone through quite a bit of stretching and changing and moving in terms of climate over the bazillion years it's been around, or like 18 or whatever the people are counting, but it's been a while. And so you could make an argument that there is no definitive yes. And to do that, you would have to somehow discount or find reasons that current data that shows the carbon parts per million cruising up relentlessly ever since the Industrial Revolution, and see the parallel impacts of climate in terms. I mean, we just went through a week where I think every day for 7 days we've had 40-mile-an-hour winds. That's that didn't happen when I first moved here. You get a couple windy days and then it will go away. But so we don't. So the answer finally is we don't know. Sea level's going up. They know that. They have laser measurements now. It hasn't gone up much, but it doesn't. We live under sea level. It doesn't take much to cause a little bit of concern. Are the billionaires figuring out where the land's going to be in 50 years and buying that and calling it beach property to be? I don't know. But ultimately, I would say signs point to yes is a fair answer at this point with climate change, because none of us are climate scientists. Oh, the other thing I would say, if you want to throw another thing in there, is one of the reasons that the Arctic just got super important is because if you melt it, you're going to have access to all the minerals, all the oil in the ocean, all the fish that are living up there that you can't fish right now because it's under an ice cap. And so part of the reason why everybody's kind of getting a little happy and excited about Greenland and the Arctic Circle and all those areas up there is because that is an unexploited part of the earth. And whoever gets first dibs on it, it's like a monopoly. It's like playing Risk when you're just like rolling the dice, and I'm like, I'm going to get all this space and all this territory because there are good things in this territory. And so I think that is part of the reason right now that's going on, and it's anticipating climate change. Because if you weren't going to melt it all, it wouldn't matter. It would just be a chunk of ice, and nobody would care.
Well, you're supposed to be advocating for the magic eight ball, and it seems like you're digressing a
I
lot, Scott.
Signs point to yes. So you could look at geopolitical people as well as the wealthy people and say that they may say no, but their actions indicate yes, and that would be a sign. You don't just have to use science; you could use sociology.
Well, personally, I feel a lot better not using science because it's all tainted. I mean, it all is generally fueled by money to come to the conclusions they do. But I'll give it science
But
point to.
but not exclusively, right? And ultimately, if you get really good at reading science, you can see that. I mean, you can analyze their science, and a lot of scientists poach on each other. So if somebody rolls out some BS that was just like funded by the I Need Some BS company,
Exactly.
then what'll happen is it'll go to peer review and it'll get slaughtered. So there are because scientists are a fairly sharky bunch, and they don't like being one-upped. And so if they see bad science, they call it out. It's not like the cops or other other groups of people where if there's a bad one, everybody just kind of is quiet and doesn't say anything.
Well,
If they see bad science, they get snarky.
I believe there was a time in mankind's evolution that science was indeed
Wait,
science.
evolution?
Yeah.
Damn it, that's science. No, don't even go
No,
there.
no, no. There was science. There was science, but now I believe science has become an art form.
I believe that there are elements of truth in that, especially when you've got large companies with vested interests and
Yeah.
outcomes funding
Yes.
the science.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just
You know,
it's evolved. It's evolved.
which kind of makes me sad because it looks like government's going to pull back on funding science, and that might have been the neutral party in the room.
Maybe, but sadly, I have more confidence in the magic 8 ball than modern science.
There you go. Science points yes on that one.
There you go.
All right, you ready for another one?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I got a dog park one here.
Perfect.
Our pets seem to be able to sense emotion. We even have some that we call emotional support pets. 8 ball. Can our pets sense emotion? And we're going to shake that bad boy. It's shaking. And the answer is, it is certain.
Well,
Enlighten us, Justin.
well, of course, it's certain. Any of us that have owned pets and have a relationship with our pet understand that they can provide support, and they are emotional beings, and they pattern after our emotions, and they provide therapy to us when we need it.
But how do they do? They don't even speak the language. I mean, they
No,
know sit and stay and treat, but
no, 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 no.
like,
They
I'm
all
feeling anxious. I'm feeling anxious today. That's like, what? Give me a treat.
they all communicate with us. We just have to be cognizant of their ways of communicating.
Now, just parenthetically, when we were playing this out at the dog park,
Right?
one of the things we had to play for was, what if the 8 ball had said no? How would because the 8 ball said it is certain, it's perfect because it really is,
It's the 8 ball. It's a magic 8 ball.
right? It knows.
Right. Right. It's a simple question, and it
But
knows.
but we're politicians, so we were mealy mouthing our ways through ways that we could say, well, they understand the chemical reactions that we have, but not necessarily the words. And so they're reacting to all of the things their senses tell them without really having a framework of, oh, this is fear, this is anger, this is sadness, this is
Well,
joy, whatever.
that reminds me of a friend of mine that was trying to explain to me how when grass is cut, it communicates with its root system to all the other blades of grass in the area that the end is near, or you're going to suffer tremendous trauma.
Was that the unicorn guy? I
Yeah,
remember him.
Dr. Unicorn, we call him. So I don't think it doesn't require a scientific answer. It doesn't require understanding the formulas or the genetics of the species. Just pay attention. Pay attention to what the animal is trying to communicate to you.
I think probably a nice little spin-off on this would be, do all of our pets provide emotional support? And then the answer would be, well, no.
Definitely not. But if you have a relationship with your pet, let's hope it's a positive one, and you're providing each other's emotional support.
I have a sweatshirt that says that I am my dog's emotional support human and not to pet me.
Well, probably good advice.
Probably with that dog, it definitely is good advice. I need to be on my toes.
Okay.
All
So,
right, your sir.
my sir, um, are cats smarter than dogs?
Ooh, ooh, I got lots of opinions here. All right, 8 ball shaking. Oh, ho, ho. So it's better not tell you now.
Okay, 8 ball. Too good a question.
And
I
and I'm
stumped.
gonna and I'm gonna interpret that answer because since I'm sitting, I'm sitting here in the cat's space right now, and so if I started pontificating,
Right.
which I never do, but in theory I could, about how dogs were the smarter species, I might not survive the end of the podcast.
So that's in
And
essence
and
like science, right? You're being inspired,
right, I got peer pressure.
right? But let's take note.
Now,
I
interesting. I would say that there's an interesting either or on this one. I would say that you've got dogs who have all of these service abilities that cats appear to be less interested in performing. Um, and you've got cats who, I saw a sign the other day that said, be aware that in the word homeowner is the word meow. And that kind of sums it up. Cats get really good servant quality. They get taken care of. And dogs are more likely to serve you. That being said, I read a really interesting study that dogs are now evolving into a sociologically into a different animal, and that animal is kind of modeled on the idea of a service dog. So the value of a dog nowadays is a dog that likes strangers, that can sit in a crowded cafe, that if a kid comes up and grabs their ears, they don't like bark at the kid. And so dogs are generally becoming less specialized in especially in types of like garden breeds, and more to be just good, affable, friendly, lovable canine companions. And that was an interesting article. And they had some data. I know that they were probably being paid by Purina.
probably.
Um, but it was an interesting article to consider that dogs have really adapted over their relationship with humans. I was talking to a human this morning in the dog park who said that I don't believe in evolution. And I said, well, maybe you weren't an ape, you were an alien. but but then I said, I'll give you an argument on evolution. And I pointed to my little Pekin Wawa, who's about this big and has nice little pointy ears. And I said, back in this dog's family tree was a wolf, and another wolf, two wolves, and they were parents, and they had a kid, and that kid had kids, and that kid had kids, and eventually selective breeding got us to this dog who's really small and kind of still looks a little bit like a wolf. And I got them nodding their heads a little bit, but I don't think they were ready to acknowledge their monkey ancestors.
Well, it's not. Truer ancestors are amoebas and protozoa. So
Right? I didn't even try to push that button. I was already losing the hominid. I was going for like the Java man, and I was already getting blowback. Like, oh, okay. But the dog thing kind of turned it because it was like, yeah, you're right. That used to be a wolf,
well, among other things. I mean, if we're true evolutionists,
right? Now the cool thing about cats is cats are essentially the exact same thing that they were when they started following us into the granaries, and realizing that we were housing lots of rats a gazillion years ago, in mostly in Egypt, but in also parts of Asia. And the cats that followed us in there are essentially the same cats that they are today. And if you take away the size differential of a tiger and a house cat, they're virtually the same animal. They have the same habits. They pee the same. They eat and drink the same. They they like they like the same things on Facebook. It's amazing.
okay. Well, so the house
Where
cat.
where a border collie versus a chihuahua, it's like they're not on the same page at all,
Well, so their parents are both saber-toothed tigers, I assume.
right? Yeah, absolutely. Some sort of giant feline thing was the mom and daddy of all the felines.
Well, and if we
But they kept their groove.
Well, okay. If we're going to believe in that theory, people that are pure evolutionists have to understand there's more holes in the theory than certainties.
Oh, absolutely, because we weren't videoing back in the BCs.
Right.
For whatever reason, our video sets weren't recording, or maybe it was a format that is no longer supported, right? But either way, we don't have hard data.
Right.
We
Well,
have investigative data,
well, exactly,
you know,
exactly.
record, phone records and DNA and stuff like that.
No, no. If we want to depend on DNA, there again, now we brought in big science, and maybe tainted, and a
Well, I
lot.
get a check when 23andMe sells their my DNA results.
Yeah.
Will that be like a windfall profit for me?
No, it won't. But you may get an email that your data has been compromised.
No, they're going to sell it. They're going bankrupt now.
The
That my data is going to be part of the sales price when they
no.
sell it to one of the billionaires.
Well, no, 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 no. Once it goes into the bankruptcy court, then the bankruptcy court will do the liquidation of it. So Big Brother will sell your data
Oh yeah,
after
absolutely.
after it farms it.
If I didn't have very boring data, I'd be worried about it. But
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I pity the fool that wants my data, but they're welcome to it.
right,
Yeah.
it's like there is nothing there to see. I'm the least diverse DNA person in the history of DNA.
There you go. There you go. Okay.
But I am more Neanderthal than 90% of the general population,
According to 23andMe.
according to 23andMe. Exactly. And I haven't cross DNA'd with anybody else, so I'm not sure what they would say.
Okay. Well, it depends on where they go.
Interestingly, I cross-referenced the DNA of my dogs and got slightly different results. So your point may be well taken.
Well, it is. All you have to do is take yours to another source and you'll get another set of data, and then you'll just be no closer to the truth than you were when you started.
Hey, I want to be proudly Neanderthal, so I'm just hanging with the data I got, baby.
Well, I go, my genetics show amoeba. I've got a lot of amoeba in me and behaviors and characteristics. So
Is that like one of the ones that like gets in your gut and kills you, or is this a happy, friendly, like smiling dinosaur amoeba?
amoebas just are. They just exist. They don't take on a persona of good or bad. They're just an amoeba. They just slosh around.
Yeah, yeah. You never played? Did you ever play the Oregon Trail game when computer games first came out?
I did not.
It was like you'd always get to like halfway through the Rocky Mountains, and then you die of dysentery.
Well, there you go.
And your little covered wagon and your oxen would be like walking through the thing, and it would stop, and some sad music would play, and it would say, "You just died of amoebic dysentery." You're like,
Oh,
oh, and that's how we all learned about amoebas. It was like all the original gaming people, the old OGs of gaming. We all learned about it from the Oregon Trail game.
wow. Well, we learned about it in grade school, but Oregon Trail, another way to
Nice,
do it.
nice.
Okay.
All right. Your serve.
You're asking me a question, right?
You're gonna ask a question. That was. Oh no, you asked dogs and cats. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. All right, I got one. And this is a dog park one. It's an interesting one. The astrology industry, horoscopes, has an annual footprint of $15 billion, and it's rising fairly quickly. 8 Ball, are astrology and horoscopes real? And I am shaking the 8 Ball, and the 8 Ball says it is certain. Tell us about horoscopes.
No, 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 no. They exist.
Come
They
on, you're
exist.
an Aries. You can do this. You can
No,
do
no, no, no,
this.
no. This was a weak question to the 8 Ball. You asked the question: do horoscopes exist?
Are they real? That was the question.
Well,
Are and real when they
okay,
generated the question at the dog park, what they meant was, are they valid?
okay.
Or can we draw conclusions from them?
All right. Go ahead. Why don't you re-ask that question to the 8 Ball?
Oh, you think of it? That's too funny. Boy, talk about like it's like the NBA, and you're asking us to review the play.
Exactly.
All right, the astrology industry has an annual footprint of $15 billion and rising, which is pretty impressive. 8 Ball, is astrology and horoscopes real in terms of being valid and useful in terms of evaluating relationships and how you're doing yourself and everything that it purports to give you?
Good
And
question.
I'm shaking, and I am shaking. Oh, points for Justin. It said very doubtful.
There you go. That proves everybody that the magic 8 ball is only as good as your ability to ask it questions in a reasonable manner.
Critical point. Critical point. So, like, if you ask if the Yankees are going to win the championship, it's going to say yes, but it's going to say yes in 43 years.
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because you weren't specific enough.
In the year 2525.
But tell me, I mean, every time, everybody I've dated, I actually rescheduled a cesarean section so that I could have a kid that was vibes to my horoscope. And the doctor agreed to do it. So tell me why this is so doubtful.
Oh, I have to justify. Well, there's just no.
Yeah. You've got a happy justification.
There again, it is an art form. Tarot cards are an art form. They're subject to various interpretations, as are horoscopes. And if you look at 10 predictions on a specific day for a specific sign by 20 different sources, you're going to get 20 different projections.
And you're going to pick the one that you think's the best vibe, the one that fits.
No,
builds your projection.
As I would suggest you do. And just because the Magic 8 Ball and I don't believe it's valid information, if you find comfort in it, if you enjoy it, knock yourself out. And if you don't like the projection you got, check another source.
But that's like a total Sagittarius kind of thing to do. And let's be honest.
Honest? Let's ask better questions.
Well, okay, honest is a Capricorn thing. Honest is a Capricorn, not a Gemini thing. I'll tell you that for sure.
Right,
but
and Aries is you can't handle the truth, so it's all
right,
perspective.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Once we got you in your gear, it was like you came through in a really good way. It's funny because I went to school at a place where stuff like astrology was validated, was like honored, right? And even stuff like tarot was honored as kind of shamanistic. And absolutely, your point is very well taken here. It's like there are people who really, really got this stuff dialed in and are very sensitive and are very careful. And indeed, if you're going to trust someone, trust an expert. But there are other people that I went to school with who pointed out a research study, not sponsored by the horoscope movement for sure, where they gave a room full of people the exact same reading and asked them how it applied to them, and they all had an answer. Because it was like this is your special horoscope. What how does it apply to you? And then they were all like, this is totally me, and this is how it works. And they all had the exact same thing. And obviously their birthdays weren't all the same. So to your point.
Well, so it's just sad they didn't have a virtual 8 ball.
Right. This could have solved the whole problem.
Absolutely.
All right. You ready, sir?
I am.
Okay, I'm up. I'm ready.
Okay. Can you find anything nutritious at McDonald's?
Here we go. We failed to mention that we are sponsored by McDonald's. Hey, but the answer. You know what? Your confidence in the 8 ball is like got me believing it now. The answer is outlook not so good.
Oh, see, there you go. Okay, well that's easy to side with, Scott. That's
it's funny because I grew up as a fast food was our dog treat, was the children equivalent of dog treats. And so, and hamburgers were 24 cents, and cheeseburgers were 29 cents. And and so I grew up with parents, and I had single parents. So my parents were divorced. And so fast food, they were both working. And so fast food became kind of like a fairly regular thing in my life. And especially McDonald's, because with all the extra sugar and salt that they put in their foods, it becomes really like treatful. It's like wow, I love the taste of this stuff. And really, what you love is they figured out that it's a nutritious psyop, if you will. They realize what receptors we have that tell us that food is good to eat, and then they plug their food full of these good to eat triggers. And then it doesn't matter if the food's good to eat, because the triggers are telling your brain, yeah, just keep stuffing those chicken McNuggets down, because somehow that's going to be good for you. And so I grew up, filet of fish sandwich, I will say, was my favorite. But man, double cheeseburgers to this day will get me kind of thinking, man, it's lunchtime. French fries, hot, like especially well-made French fries with clean oil, double dose of salt. And yeah, I spent most of my adult life dieting because my body wasn't convinced that fast food was healthy.
Well, and
Well, my tongue was convinced it tasted good.
when McDonald's made a conscious decision to put bone marrow in the French fries and use lard, they tasted a lot better. And now they
Oh
don't
yeah, yeah, yeah,
anymore.
yeah. Lard made for a really good French fry.
Yeah.
Probably not good for the lining of your arteries in your heart,
But probably no
but the
worse
French
for
fries were awesome.
but probably no worse for you than hydrogenated vegetable oil either. So,
You know
it's
what?
all
That is also a very, very good point. I mean, the fact that you could put a McDonald's hamburger on a plate and put it in your cupboard and leave it there for 4 years, and it comes out looking pretty much exactly the same as it did when you stuck it in your cupboard 4 years ago, is no mold, no rot, no nothing. It doesn't spoil,
right.
and that should be like a red flag.
Well, and the roaches won't eat it. That's the other thing that should
There you
concern us
go.
all.
And it won't even attract. It'll repel roaches.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, Scott.
That was a wonderful question, and something that I think we all need to be aware of, because it is seductive. For me, it is. I maybe not for you, but for me, fast food has always been like, ooh, Monster style. Let's do this, and it's not, in the long run, it's not really biologically good for you.
No, to me it was never a decision. It was fast. It was convenient. It was you could eat on the way to your next task. So there wasn't a
Yes.
love affair with it. It was just, it's what you grabbed. And some days you decided to get this carcinogen at this place as opposed to that carcinogen at the other place.
And so now we're all late middle age taking anxiolytic vitamins because we know that cures the damage that we did to ourselves,
The sins of our youth. Well, yeah.
right? And sadly, it cures us by killing those bad cells. So it helps our natural immune system hunt down the damage we've done and take care of it for us. So,
There you
very good.
there you go.
All right, here you go. Oh, you'll love this one. This will be right. This is right up your alley. You've heard of a guy named Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, good. Elon Musk said the fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. And while I feel his pain, I disagree. I think the fundamental weakness of Western civilization is humility.
Wait a
Eight
minute.
ball
No,
is
this is a very complicated question, Scott. Could you just ask the 8 ball a simple question?
all right. Eight ball is humility the fundamental weakness of Western civilization? Humility. And now we're gonna shake. Having this eight ball is great. I'm gonna just carry this thing around.
Now that you
Gonna be
believe.
gonna be like my personal guidance counselor. Oh, nice. It said concentrate and ask again. All right, I'm
So I'm
concentrating.
I'm trying. I'm trying 8 ball. I'm trying doing the best I can.
Right,
He's
right, right.
he's just got a complicated mind.
All right. 8 ball. Is humility the fundamental weakness of Western civilization? Humility. And it says without a doubt. So tell us why humility is makes us weak.
That's a tough question.
Collectively,
Collectively.
the civilization.
Well, humility gets in the way of civilization's ability to move forward, to accomplish. It tends to, too much humility tends to stagnate us into doing and accomplishing nothing.
So if we're always kind of shrugging and stepping back, then ultimately true leadership doesn't emerge, and maybe some things that could have been done don't get done.
To say the least. I mean that's a complicated question. That question is worthy of an episode.
Right? It's funny because I grew up with the coach hard coaches, people who coach you hard. And one of the things that I took away when I was doing that was don't let your common sense make a coward out of you.
Well,
And I always loved that quote. I always loved that quote. It was like, damn, there's a lot to unpack there, right?
right, but for my childhood, it was a little engine that could. Believe in yourself. Nothing about it's hard to be humble. It,
Yeah.
and humility was just nothing in my life. So it's easy for me to question its value to others, but there must be a value somewhere. Even though the 8 ball and I agree. Imagine.
Yeah. The 8 ball was on top of this. I think speaking to your point, is the idea that that fear is contagious, but so is courage. And so if that person who has the strength to work through their and it'd be interesting to see what motivates humility, right? I mean, if it means less work for me, then I'm a very humble dude.
But you're not. But you're
You
not.
know,
In
when
reality,
my
you're
wife
not.
says, well, no, but when my wife says, you're really lousy at dusting the furniture, I'm going to do it. I'm like, I'm really humble. I say, you know what? You're totally right. Because I got some benefit there, didn't I?
Well, yeah, but
So ultimately, why a person is humble is probably part of that interesting question.
if the comment of your inability to dust humiliates you to the point that you curl up into a fetal position and sob yourself to sleep, I think there's just too many variables in what is humility.
No, I go outside and feed the birds or walk the dog or, you know, do something so that I don't get additional humbling moments while the person is doing the job that I probably could do just fine.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So at that point, we step out.
All right,
All right,
Scott. You're up.
you got one? We'll do a couple more.
Okay. Um, okay. Well, we didn't get anywhere with the cat and dog question. Um,
Oh, which one's smarter? No, they dodged it, didn't they?
yeah, they did. Do pets have the ability to help us heal?
And heal like serious healing, like cure cancer or
No, actually,
like scabs on my
emotionally,
arm or
physically. Do they have
okay.
any capacity to help us?
So in any sort of holistic sense.
Right. Yeah,
All
good
right.
question.
The ball is shaken. I said ask again later.
Oh, Dan. I ask these vague questions, and the Magic 8 Ball gets
Eight,
upset.
eight ball smoking us out though. I love that. It's like that's better than our comments right after our show. Got us on speed dial.
Okay. Well, here's a question.
All right.
It, does American Consciousness, the show, have a redeeming value?
Ooh, boy, trusting the eight ball, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Most likely. Most likely. Okay, so I get to answer that, which is cool because yeah, I can answer. It had been scrambling to cover the other side of this thing, but I show up every week and put time and effort into it. I go to the dog park and ask questions. So I'm happy that the eight ball agrees with us here,
Well, good.
and I would say it does a couple things. One, and probably most importantly, it really gently tries to get people to challenge their own beliefs. Because one of the things that you and I do on the show is we personally take on responsibility for our own beliefs. And then we are able to hear where sometimes our beliefs don't hold water. Look, I can hear the grass crying right now.
So can the dog, because of the keen
So
hearing.
can the dog. So I think number one, I think it's a good place to just kind of try on other sizes of clothes, right? It's like, oh, okay, what do I look like in this? What do I look like in that? And see how other people think in ways that help open perspectives. If we've locked into something, sometimes it's really hard for us to take the next step and keep learning. And so sometimes learning involves kind of shaking off some of the stuff you believe. And that's not to imply that there are a bunch of wickedly bad beliefs out there. It's just that there's this real spectrum. And I think we try to get the spectrum without grabbing onto one side of it and saying, this is the only color in the spectrum that works. And I think that's the value of the show when you get down to it. Although the humor, Justin is also an incredibly attractive, cute person. He's so attractive and cute, we can't put him on camera with me.
Yeah.
That is, and we do that just so people don't feel jealous.
Well, and so you're not humiliated.
You know, they be watching the show go,
Oh, you're breaking up, Scott.
man,
Scott, you're breaking
they're so
up.
good looking.
Okay,
I'm,
Scott,
I'm,
your connection is really bad right now. Okay.
I'm back. Are you back?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's good for now.
Good. Do we have to welcome back the rest of the world, or are you going to be
No,
able to
no,
splice
no.
it?
They endured. They hung on to put up with us.
So they
So,
were all like hanging on the edge of our last thought, which of course that was 30 seconds ago. So we forgot completely what we were talking about.
well, they got to experience you as a robot. Broken speech and freezing and unfreezing, but now you're here, so we're grateful for that.
Mr. Roboto is my side gig here.
So you
Anyway,
were
I really do think there's value in the show. All kidding aside about looks or humor or other, and humor may be actually a piece of that because some of the things, sometimes some of our takes are pretty silly, and then sometimes our way of reacting to the world says that, hey, maybe you don't have to take this life and death serious.
No, I agree. I think that's a true value, Scott. It's we can laugh through some serious issues or some serious aspects to some issues that people deal with. And we both have that gift. We both have the gift that we can laugh at ourselves, and I don't think either of us believes that we're always right, or it wouldn't work.
No, but yeah, 85, 90%. But
Well, yeah, I
there's
am.
that little piece.
I am, and you're trying, and that's all we can reasonably ask.
Well, and if you said I always believe I'm right, then wouldn't that be your first wrong?
Well,
Because
yes.
always
Yeah.
is a tough sell. Always is a tough sell. In anytime anybody ever says always or never, I'm always like, well, throw that out the window,
Well, we all know that only the magic eight ball is always right. So back to the game.
right? The Magic Eight Ball has had our number today, which is cool. And that was actually when we thought this show up. That was actually one of my things. Was like, I bet you it's going to throw some curve, and we're going to have to like live on our feet or whatever instead of our minds.
Our wits.
Yeah, right.
All
All
right.
right, let's see. I got one more, and this is kind of an interesting one. You want to try it?
Yeah.
All right. So, and this is a dog park question. So, and it's got a preamble. I'm sorry, we wrote preambles into these things. Civilization, as we call it, developed through agriculture, then industry, and now technology. Okay? Eight ball. If we could run it back and choose to remain small community hunters and gatherers, would we be better off? Is considered. Is that an okay question? That's a hard one. I mean, there's lots of elements in play.
Well, simplify the question for the 8 ball, but I understand where you're going with it.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, would we be better off as a species of hunters and gatherers, or a bunch of people reliant on air conditioning and Wi-Fi signal
Okay.
and cars that start? Okay, so we're gonna shake the 8 ball. 8 balls here. Now, mind you, the 8 ball wouldn't have existed in hunter and gathering days, so it may not have a take on this one. So let's see. And it says most likely. So we would have been most likely better off not not stopping and growing crops collectively, which required field workers and harvest workers and deliver workers, and then allowed people to sell it, and then people had to earn. That was kind of how civilization got rolling. And then we developed factories and mechanical stuff, and now we've got cell phones. But 8 ball seems to think that might have been a swing and a miss.
Well, I don't know that the 8 ball's being not being a good steward of our best interest, but one thing I'll say for the 8 ball, magically, is that we wouldn't live as long. We would,
That is correct.
so we would have to endure fewer stresses and fewer problems.
Right. So cavemen or hunters and gatherers in early civilization, prior to civilization, only worked about 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours a day, to gather enough food and deal with their shelter needs and everything else. And so the rest of the time they were just kind of hanging out and listening to podcasts. No, I guess not. Um, Talking to each other and watching stars and inventing mythology and stuff like that. But they died when they were 36.
Well, they had good self-esteem because they drew pictures of themselves on caves, and they were always very, very attractive.
No, just like us with online filters, right? It's like
Exactly.
if you can't look good online, then you really haven't tried to like master the art, because
So maybe I think that's a great question, and that question was from the dog park.
that was a dog park question. Yes.
I can't, to be honest, I just can't get on board agreeing or disagreeing with the 8 ball's conclusion.
It's really hard. I mean, we don't have kind of, you know, hindsight's 2020, but we've never been hunters and gatherers. It's really hard to draw a fair comparison. And you're right. It's like, who knows? I mean, if you're a hunter and gatherer and your tribe has to move 6 miles every day to get food, and you sprain an ankle, I don't know if that tribe like pulls you along until your ankle gets better, or just says, hasta la vista, baby.
Well, and you have evolved to the point of hunting and gathering because before that you were a scavenger.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And not to be clear, hunters and gatherers also still scavenge.
Right.
I
To
mean,
survive.
my cats might get a bird if they were allowed to go out and do that, but if I drop half my tuna sandwich on the floor, they'll figure that out pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And, my cat spends a lot of energy explaining to me that Ritz crackers are good for cats.
Nice. Without the tuna sitting on top of it.
Right. That artificial butter flavor, he likes it.
Nice, nice. It's interesting what will relate to its food.
Right.
So we don't know. Hunters and gatherers, it might have been a blast, right? It might have been just whatever. Or you could have been in a small community of hunters and gatherers and been like the subdominant person. So the person who cleaned up everybody else's poop or something. And that might have been a drag.
Well, maybe, but maybe that would have been the number one job in the cave. Who knows?
Exactly.
You didn't want to be on that first hunting team that was going to go try and slay the mammoth. That would have been bad.
Now, but this also could swing back to our earlier question on climate change, right? Because theoretically, if we'd stayed hunters and gatherers, we'd have limited our population. We would have not developed a lot of things that burn a lot of carbon, and they may be living in some sort of idyllic, non-hurricane, non-catastrophic rain event this weekend, Kentucky event. So there's an interesting thing too. I
Well,
mean, we haven't thought about environmental impacts of civilization versus non-civilization.
well,
No, may not.
environmental impact can be the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. So, if you
Yeah,
want to believe
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, no, I drew a giant target over the state of Wyoming, and it hasn't happened yet. So I kind of have my doubts.
Okay. Okay, Scott. All right. Should we try one more? And, kudos to the dog park. That was a pretty complicated, pretty layered question.
Well, and it was interesting because eight balls traditionally are kind of like I questions, right? Am I going to get married? Am I going to live 20 more years? And some of that stuff originally came up. And they were like, okay, well, now we have to kind of expand and ask the eight ball broader questions that step out of our own personal needs or wants or possibilities and talk about more broader things. So it really was a fun discussion at the park.
Well, and you've made it extremely interesting because you're asking, both of us are trying to agree with whatever the magic eight ball comes up with.
I think that makes I think that makes the whole dynamic good. That we're just going to concede correctness to the eight ball, and then we're going to swing in like media newscasters and say, and here's why that's good news.
Yeah, exactly. Talking heads, worshiping at the magic eight ball altar.
Yeah. And maybe that's what they should do. Maybe that would just uncomplicate things in a lot of different ways.
Well, yeah, I hate to agree with you, but most political speeches and most people from the pulpit have nothing on the eight ball.
Wouldn't it be funny if a person like ran for president and stood up there and posed kind of rhetorical yes or no questions and then asked the eight ball,
Well, not too many
tariffs,
years.
is this tariffs? Is this going to work?
No, no. The idea of a press conference where they're using the magic eight ball to answer it would have been it would have been a step in the right direction a few years ago.
Probably more, but even today, probably more honest. Because ultimately, what you get in press conferences is you get the spin of whoever is hosting the press conference, and that spin is never kind of politely designed to tell truth. It's designed to support who's ever giving the press conference,
Well,
and that has gotten more and more that way.
or sway who might be uh, having to listen to the press conference.
Oh, absolutely. You're talking to your audience, and then it gets filtered through media,
Right.
and it's what I find kind of not disappointing. I guess it's par for the course. Is that anytime anybody says anything nowadays, if I really want to like know what's going on, I have to begin to fact check, and then I have to fact check my fact checkers.
Well, yeah, give up on the use your mind, Scott, because most of the fact checking services are tainted one way or the another anyway. But what's really interesting that's happening today is we're able to see these press conferences and actually hear the press interact with the press secretary and ask questions. And what's frightened me, which I never realized, was how moronic or out of context some of those questions are, and how pitifully they pay attention to what's being said, because three of them will ask the same question back to back to back.
because they're asking to fill the information. So they're asking an answer that they're anticipating,
Yeah.
and they're wanting that answer either to be verified sometimes, like, yeah, this is doing. See, I told you that's what we're doing, or they want it to be like, oh, look, they're evading the answer because
Ma-
this is the answer that's really happening. And so either way, it's disingenuous.
Well, it is, and you and I are perceiving it differently, but either way, we should all be concerned. We should ask the magic 8 ball.
Now that we've found something more reliable, huge
Yeah.
meaning. Or
Oh,
ask your dog, or ask your pets, because again, your pets are a lot less inclined to create agendas and to work on hidden agendas and to kind of deliberately push somebody into something that they themselves don't believe. When was the last time your dog lied to you?
last time you broke something. Oh, I didn't do
Yeah, but look at their eyes. It's like even if they're trying to go like it was the cat's fault or whatever, you take one look at them and they're like, oh, okay, just don't beat me. Just keep the treats coming. What do I need to do? I'll wag my tail.
Well, Scott, neither you or I beat our pets, so.
No, no, absolutely true. I don't even typically raise my voice because like what good's it gonna do? Occasionally I'll say, hey, wait, something charged up is happening, but mostly not. Hey, I got an idea for Justin, for our listeners. If you like this format, we can come up with questions, and the 8 ball is always going to have an answer. Light us up in the comment section, and we will take that under due consideration. We will become your 8 ball gurus. We'll be the people who throw interesting data at the 8 ball and then help explain, because the 8 ball has only got like a couple characters, so it only gets to say like yes, no, maybe, and we'll help fill in the gaps there.
Well, yeah, kind of. You get to hear us ramble on about what the 8 ball's told us, and we're not in judgment of the 8 ball. We're just trying to sort it out in our minds more than explain it to others.
Absolutely, and again, if you like that, let us know, and obviously we'll be better at it.
We may be better at it.
No, I think practice makes regardless.
Well, Scott, I think kudos to the dog park. I think you and the dog park came up with a good episode, and I think we should revisit this more often than not.
Yeah, let's do it once in a while, and I'll go to the dog park and say, hey guys, did you have fun with this? And if you did, you know, keep thinking about questions, because for us as the dog park, when the civilization question came up, for example, we sat there and shoot our way through it, and
And
it was good for us at the dog park.
and you had a good time doing it, so you could actually have a good time doing that with the kids at the table.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, if civilization didn't exist, all of our dogs would be wolves.
Well, yeah, maybe. And I don't. We didn't ask the 8 ball that, but maybe we'll ask the 8 ball that on a future episode.
For sure, for sure.
Because you seem to be pro wolf today, Scott.
No, you know what? I like the multi-capacity of dogs, but I also like the integrity and purity of cats. So I play both ways here.
Well, then you have the evil cousin to both of them, which would be the coyote.
Hyenas.
Oh yeah, yeah. That the most prehistoric animal still walking the face of the earth.
Every time I see a hyena, I'm like, dang, I wish I had one of those for a pet, man. It would just be so like it would be so kind of living on the edge.
That's
Could
what's odd.
could take off your arm with one bite. It's like
Yeah,
it tis a flesh wound.
what's odd about that statement, Scott, is I've said that myself very many times. Oh, it would have been so cool to have a hyena as a pet.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got a whole list of wild animals we should not have as pets that I wouldn't have mind giving it a run with.
Well, back when you could order an alligator or a crocodile from the back
Right?
of Boy's Life magazine.
Big 40-year-old or 40-pound feral raccoon running around the house or something, taking your food, not
There you
like begging, like coming in, that's mine.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Scott, why don't you, thanks for this idea and thanks to the dog park and thanks for everybody that put up with us. Why don't you take us out of here?
All right. Like I said, blow up the comment section if you like this. If you drop questions in the comment section, that would even be cool because we're willing to take these on. Because ultimately, the 8 ball is our guidance. We trust it. We believe in its integrity, and it's all about focus. When you ask the 8 ball question, you focused, and you have told us that today. It's like if you guys are goofing around, don't even come knocking on my door.
Exactly.
And I think that that's the takeaway.
Yep.
If you really need to focus about what you want to know, and the answer is going to become clear.
Well, yeah, you can't put the magic 8 ball to shame because if you can ask a good question, it's going to give you the answer. I like that. We
Yeah,
learned that today. We actually learned
and we
that.
learned that today, right? Very much so.
All right, Scott. Thank you. Hey, everybody. This has been Justin Case and Scott bringing you American Consciousness or 8 ball madness. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links provided in this video is read more. Today's the day to subscribe to this channel. Please learn more about Scott. And we're going to put the magic 8 ball link in the read more. So if you want to get your own virtual 8 ball, you're going to be able to do it when time permits.
Cool. Yes.